Good morning. How's everybody doing? Don't forget to type your name in the chat, please. Okay, so just a few notes about what's been going on. All reaction assignments and Unit 2 assignments are graded. So if you did not get a grade for any of your assignments, it means that I did not receive it. I've been getting some emails that say, like, hey, I don't have a grade, but they're not signed. So I have no idea who is sending the emails. So make sure that when you send me an email that you put your name on it, especially if it's concerning grades, because I have no idea who to look for whenever I'm looking at the grade book and wondering why you don't have a grade. So that, but also make sure that you are reading the annotations and the comments that I add to your reaction assignments or any of your assignments that I grade, because that is where you will get the information for maybe why your grade is lower than expected, or for what you could do to improve your grade for next time. Something else that I came across a few times whenever I was grading is the plagiarism issue. So I came across a few individuals who had plagiarized, and I was able to pick that up and find the original source. Plagiarism is not accepted. So typically you will be given a 0, but if there are repeat offenses for plagiarism, extended measures will be taken for that purpose. On Friday night, I was inundated with emails and I was out of town. So make sure that you start working on your assignments before a couple of hours until they're due, because like on Friday, the assignments were due. I was in Midland at a softball tournament, and I did not have a chance to answer some of your questions about the reaction assignment that you had because I was watching my daughter play softball. So remember that if you wait until the last minute to complete your assignments, chances are you're not going to be able to get in touch with me until the next Monday morning. So yesterday I answered emails that I had received. Something else that I want to remind you of, we are now, we will be taking exam 3 for this unit. Some of you emailed me and said I was kicked out of my exam, or I left to go do something else and came back and it had timed out. So remember, when you're taking your exams, you have 1 hour to complete the exams, and you must complete the exams in one sitting. So you can't leave your computer and then come back and try to finish your exam. I also, for anyone that, might email me and say, I only got to question 6 or whatever you may be saying, I have a way to go in and look at what all questions you looked at. So if you are trying to look, if you are trying to look at all of the questions, and then you want to email me and tell me that you didn't get very far in your exam, I can see what questions you've looked at. So just keep all of those things in mind. Okay, Abigail, when I tried to do the reaction assignment, it would not let me get into the library. So was that because of the wrong username and password? Do you know, can you tell me more information about what your problem may have been? Because I do know at some point last week, the Wi-Fi was down here at the Cisco campus. So that could have been a barrier to that. But if you will watch the video that I posted for reaction assignment 1, it gives you specific instructions on how to do everything. Okay, so yes, if you can go back and watch the video that I posted for reaction assignment 1, it will give you specific instructions and show you explicitly how to get into the library database system. I will probably be making another video for reaction assignment 2. Even though your second reaction assignment is going to be identical to your first reaction assignment, you still, the instructions are the same. So that one is not due until the 4th unit is due. So we will not have to do a reaction assignment for this unit, but you are more than welcome to start working on it. And I do encourage you, very highly encourage you to work on it early, because like I said, I could be at a softball tournament and not be able to answer your questions. My daughter is extremely busy right now. So outside of, the 8 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, we are running all over the place. So last minute questions, typically I will not be able to answer. So make sure that you work on it early in case you run into any hiccups. You can, we can address the issue before the assignment is due. So on that note, remember, as stated in the syllabus, reaction assignments are only accepted late with penalty. And you would just simply email them to me. Late discussions and chapter workups are not accepted at all. You have plenty of time to complete those daily assignments. So you need to stay on top of those things. Tests, I will have a period at the end of the semester. It is listed on the schedule where all 4 chapter exams are open if you miss them. So you cannot retake an exam, but you can take it if you missed it, because I know some of you may just simply forget, and it usually is going to be the last assignment that you would complete for the unit. So I understand some of you may run into some issues, because we all are at this point. So anyways, with all of that said, does anyone have any questions about anything that's going on? Okay, so we're going to continue with Unit 3 today, which is chapters 13 through 15. We talked about personality development on last Thursday, and a lot of those theories that we talked about can be translated into causes for psychological disorders. So I told you to make sure that you print out this page. This page gives you some basic information about the different theories, but we are going to look at psychological disorders today, which is chapter 14. So whenever we are looking at psychological disorders, we are actually looking at psychopathology. Psychopathology is the study of abnormal behavior, or the study of abnormality. Let me see if I can pull up something here. Psychopathology is the study of abnormal behavior. So we are going to look at how we actually define abnormality, but first let's take a look back in history. A lot of you are probably familiar with some of the early explanations of mental illness. For instance, demon possession is definitely a big one. And actually in demon possession, there is evidence that they would actually cut a hole into the brain to let the demons out. This is called trephining. So they thought that if they drill a hole into the brain in ancient times, those demons could seep out. They actually have found evidence that people survived this. So I don't know, weird stuff, but we are also looking at spirit possession, exorcism. This was brought over from Europe. The ancient Greeks thought that, like Hippocrates, thought that mental illness was a result of an imbalance of humors, which are the various fluids in your body. So yellow bowel, phlegm, things of that nature. Witchcraft has been an explanation for mental illness. So we also know that witchcraft led to many different inhumane treatments. So they would basically label usually a female as a witch and then burn her at the stake or throw her in the river tied to rocks. And if she floated, then she was actually not a witch. I mean, all sorts of crazy, no pun intended, explanations for mental disorders throughout history. But let's look at how we work with mental disorders now. We consider psychopathology, which is the study of abnormal behavior, as there are many different things that psychopathology encompasses, which we're going to look at today. But first, let's talk about how we define abnormal behavior. So first of all, if the behavior is statistically rare, so let's think about someone who might have an obsessive compulsive disorder and they have to wash their hands 30 times before they can leave the house, okay? Statistically speaking, in the population, very few people have to do that. So that would definitely be considered a statistically rare pattern of behavior. And the second thing we look at to define abnormality is deviant from social norms, social or cultural norms. So this is very important to understand because in some cultures, behaviors might be considered normal, but in other cultures, they might be considered abnormal. Go on here and mute everyone. If you, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Okay, I think I just took care of it. Okay, so for instance, if you are in, let's say, if I were to say, okay, folks, after class today, I'm going to go outside and I am going to skin me a dog and I'm going to barbecue the dog for lunch today. Most of you would probably think I was a little crazy or weird because that in our society is very abnormal. However, when the Olympics were in Beijing a few years ago, they actually had to tell the restaurants not to serve fragrant meat. So what that meant was that they did not need to be serving dog meat to the guests that were in their country, because in some countries people actually eat dog meat. So if the behavior is deviant from social norms, it could also be considered abnormal. Also, the third way we consider abnormality is the situational context. Oh, hold on. It said, well, okay. I'm trying to get this all fixed. Okay, so is subjective discomfort. If what is going on in a person's life actually causes emotional distress or discomfort, we would consider it abnormal. So this would be like an individual who is experiencing some things in life and they feel depressed. So for some people, that same situation might not cause depression, but for this particular individual, it does cause depression. So we have to look at the subjective discomfort. And the fourth way that we define abnormality is through maladaptive thinking or behavior. So this is anything that interrupts a person's daily living. So let's go back to the individual who has to wash their hands 30 times before they leave the house, and say it's 7:55 and they have class at 8 o'clock and they've only washed their hands 12 times. So more than likely, this person is going to end up being late for class. So that means that this is interfering with their daily life and it would be considered abnormal. So there are many different explanations for the abnormal behavior that we talked about a little bit about on Thursday when we were looking at personality development. So we do know, first and foremost, from the biological standpoint, that some psychological disorders are caused by something physical going on in the body. So for instance, an excess of dopamine could lead to schizophrenia, hallucinations, and delusions. Too much or too little serotonin in the brain could lead to depression. So we are actually looking, of course, with all of the technology that we have today, if we look at various disorders, there are certain brain areas that will actually cause, if there is a malfunction in that specific brain area, we are looking at a psychological disorder. So this is where we can take the biological model of treating psychological disorders as well, as we look at in chapter 15. But there are different things like medication. Some of you may be medicated for anxiety. I actually take a medication for anxiety. And, you know, some people are medicated for depression, but we also have medicines that are going to treat, you know, schizophrenia and things of that nature. So there is a commercial that runs periodically that I see when I'm watching the IDE channel, and it talks about hallucinations and delusions that are present for people with Parkinson's disease. And hallucinations and delusions are actually part of schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is one category of psychological disorder that is going to lead to the true psychosis or true psychotic behavior. And when we look at schizophrenia, we have type 1 schizophrenia, which is the addition of things. So addition of hallucinations and delusions. So if we are looking at type 1 schizophrenia, the person may actually be experiencing various hallucinations and delusions. Derek, I want you to unmute yourself real fast, or I'm going to unmute you. Try. Won't let me. But Derek, I think that if I were to say there is an individual in Albany that has schizophrenia, that you would know what I'm talking about. Yes. And it has gotten kind of scary. This individual is very paranoid. He has paranoid schizophrenia. He thinks that everyone is out to get him, that the people of Albany are part of some type of white conspiracy theory. He thinks that people are living in his attic and things of that nature. And he posts YouTube videos about it all. It's really kind of a freaky situation. So this is paranoid schizophrenia. It's a very common type of schizophrenia. On the other hand, we could have type 2 schizophrenia, which is characterized by negative symptoms. This is like your catatonic schizophrenia. You may see people in, you know, that are in mental institutions and things of that nature that experience statue-like immobility for long periods of time, and they won't, they typically do not they don't move, but then there may be an energetic outburst of what looks like hysteria. So schizophrenia, there are different characteristics of it, but we do see it as a type of psychological disorder. Some of the other types of psychological disorders, I'll pull the PowerPoint back up. All of the psychological disorders are actually going to be, we use something called the DSM-5. This is the statistical manual of psychological disorders and their symptoms. It has just recently, a few years ago, moved to the 5th edition. So some of the literature will still be referring to the DSM-4, but it is actually called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychological Disorders. So in the United States, this is what we use to help us categorize and diagnose psychological disorders. The World Health Organization will refer to the ICD-10. So it is in its 10th edition, and it is what worldwide is used to classify psychological disorders. So we talked about schizophrenia. Let's look next at anxiety disorders. So of course, the main symptom of anxiety disorders is excessive or unrealistic anxiety. There are different types of anxiety disorders. A specific phobia. This is when you may feel, scared of something in particular. Some of these can be very strange. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull something off the internet for you so that you can see it's not funny, but it is somewhat funny. If you go to the internet and you Google phobia list, the phobia list, you're going to pull this up. Okay, so let's look at some of these phobia lists. Some of them are funny. I'll show you one that I think that I find comical. Fear of long words. Look how long that word is. So fear of frogs. Do any of you have a phobia that might be a little outlandish that you want to address or talk about? I am very afraid of heights.
Ooh, I do.
What's
I
that?
actually have a GAD. I'm medically diagnosed with that. So for me, it's just anything that stresses me out. So basically, you know how you like worry every day about something or one or another? For me, that gets it builds and builds and builds until it breaks me.
Yeah, she is referring to generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. I am looking for anyone that might have a funny phobia that you can laugh about. Anything. Fear of fish, fear of ideas. Let's see if we can. Y'all should read through this. If you get a chance, just Google phobia list. A fear of vehicles, fear of snakes. That's me. I hate snakes. There are all sorts of treatments that you can go through, try to overcome these fears. One of them is systematic desensitization. This is when you will address your fear in progressive steps, and while simultaneously practicing relaxation techniques. So I've been trying to do this with my fear of heights. I specifically have a fear of driving over big bridges. So I've just been trying to overcome that fear, and I've actually done a really good job. So I can actually drive over bridges a lot better now. I used to give my husband the wrong directions so that to avoid bridges, but I can do it now. I would actually have a physical reaction. So you know you have true anxiety when you have an actual physical reaction. But there are other types of anxiety disorders as well. Those are still phobias. Panic disorder, any of you that might experience panic attacks know that panic disorder is a true and real situation that is really scary. Whenever you have panic disorder with agoraphobia, this is when you will not go out into public because you're afraid of having a panic attack. So it's legit though, because if you have a panic attack when you're driving down the road, that could be very detrimental. You could wreck your car or something. So that is another type of anxiety disorder. Phoebe mentioned generalized anxiety disorder. This is just excessive anxieties.
I have actually had several anxiety and panic attacks. Two of the anxiety attacks actually ended up with me in the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so bad.
Sometimes I've only had 2 panic attacks in my entire life, but the first one I really thought that I needed to go to the emergency room. So some of you may experience panic attacks and know how real they are. Obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder. This is when you have intruding and recurring thoughts or obsessions. Those create anxiety, and you relieve that anxiety by performing repetitive ritualistic behavior. Okay, so time out. I want to say that some of you, I even say it about myself often. I'm like, I have OCD, I have OCD. So I'm always, cleaning and organizing. That is not obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is when you might have, for instance, a recurring thought that your mother is going to die. And so what you do, you have to wash your hands 30 times before you leave the house, because that is to keep your mother from dying. Well, let's look at the behavioristic theory. On a daily basis, if you wash your hands 30 times and your mom doesn't die, that's reinforcement. That's telling you that the behavior that you performed kept your mother from dying that day. And why did I actually brought this specific issue up? Because a long time ago, I was watching True Life on MTV, and it was True Life, I have OCD. And that was an actual issue for one of the individuals on the show. So she was afraid that her mother was going to die. And so she performed ritualistic behaviors to keep that from happening. So just remember, obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder. So we also look at PTSD and acute stress disorder as anxiety disorders. Some of you may have experienced post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so what it is, acute stress disorder is similar to PTSD. Acute stress disorder is shorter in duration, so it doesn't last as long. It lasts for about 1 month after the event. But the symptoms of acute stress disorder and PTSD include anxiety, dissociation, nightmares, just hard time concentrating, having flashbacks. So my husband and I both experienced acute stress disorder after my child was born, because we had to have an emergency C-section and almost lost her. And so that's where I truly became aware of what acute stress disorder was. But Kyle also experienced it, because we would just relive her birth and how close we were to losing her on a daily basis. So you often hear of individuals who have experienced a situation in life that was very traumatic, as having PTSD. So I really am pleased with, or I am very intrigued, I should say, by a lot of the different treatments, newer treatments that they have come up with for PTSD. It's very interesting. So know that these things are treatable, and please do not be ashamed to seek help if you feel like you have any of these disorders. So other types of disorders, if we look at mood disorders are going to affect emotion or mood. So this is going to be like your major depressive disorder. This is when you are severely depressed for an extended period of time. It can also often be characterized by suicidal ideation. It is a very common mood disorder. But you've also probably heard of bipolar disorder. It's also a mood disorder where depression is experienced, but also the manic episodes are experienced as well. Manic episodes are characterized by excessive excitement, energy, and also don't forget the irritability. Irritability is also experienced in a manic episode. So a bipolar disorder is going to look at experiencing both extremes of affect. Some of this can be rapid cycling where your moods change quickly, and some of it can not be as rapid of a cycle. So you would experience depression for a long period of time followed by mania.
I'm pretty sure I got that because I have been doing that kind of behavior my entire life, and it can still continues.
Yes, it's very much what we will find as we're looking at these various disorders is it does take a trained individual to be able to distinguish between the type of disorder that you may have. For instance, let's look.
They put me on a pill and it went away, and then I stopped taking the pill, and then it came back. It was apparently the pill was for specifically bipolar disorder.
Yeah, it's important that if you are prescribed a medication for psychological maladaptivity, that you do not stop taking your medication unless advised by the doctor. But I want to go back and look. So if we are looking at bipolar disorder, we are looking at two extremes in mood. But now let's switch gears and look at dissociative disorders. These are characterized by a break in conscious awareness, memory, or some type of sense of identity. Dissociative amnesia is characterized by a loss of memory for personal information. This might not be complete loss, but it's kind of like a repressed memory. Like you dissociate, you lose that part of your memory because of something traumatic that you experienced. But one of the most popular, I don't know why I said it like that. I guess it is like well-known dissociative disorders is dissociative identity disorder. This used to be known as multiple personalities. This is where you see two or more distinct personalities within one body. Now, I would encourage you, if any of you are football fans, I know surely some of you are. I missed the Cowboys game. Somehow I turned off my ESPN in my cable package. So I'm not happy about that. But if you are a football fan, specifically a Dallas Cowboy fan, you may have heard of an individual named Herschel Walker. If you have, you need to read the book called Breaking Free. I actually have the book. I've read the book. Herschel Walker, I hope that some of you know who I'm talking about. If you're older, you probably do. He used to play for the Dallas Cowboys. He actually has dissociative identity disorder. So, but you may think the stereotypical person with multi-personalities has a little Jane or Susie or Bob, and these are the different personalities, but his personalities were more like, one was called the warrior. He was able to endure his shoulder surgery without any type of numbing or any type of, they did not like put him out anesthesia because he can dissociate and not feel the pain. So it's very interesting. If you're interested in dissociative identity, I would encourage you to read that book. It's called Breaking Free by Herschel Walker. Another type of disorder, I don't know if it's talked about on our PowerPoints. let's see. Maybe it is. Nope. Another category of disorders are somatoform disorders. Somatoform disorders, soma means body. So our somatoform disorders have to do with the body. I know many of you have probably heard of the disorder hypochondriasis. That is when, or a hypochondriac, it's a person that has something wrong with them all the time. And this is actually a way to deal with depression and anxiety. All of their feelings, they turn into physical problems. I always think of Veda from the movie My Girl. She would definitely have a hypochondriasis. So soma means body. A somatoform disorder has to do with the body in some type of, let me tell you about one. Conversion disorder. So if any of you have ever watched Talladega Nights, when Ricky Bobby became paralyzed and he couldn't walk, that would have been considered conversion disorder. So usually with a somatoform disorder, there is no real cause for the physical symptom. It's all psychological. So therefore, it's considered a psychological disorder and not a physical disorder. So we talked about schizophrenia a little bit. Now let's talk about personality disorders. Personality disorders are a little bit different than what we would consider the, I thought I had a chart. The actual Axis 1 disorders. Personality disorders is when a person experiences maladaptive personality traits. So when we talked about personality, we said personality is the way in which a person thinks, feels, and does, or the way in which a person deals with the world. So a personality disorder is a way in which a person deals with the world maladaptively. So there are different clusters of personality disorders. The odd or eccentric personality disorders include paranoid, schizotypal, schizoid personality disorders. So you may know someone with paranoid personality disorder. This person may always feel like someone is out, everybody's out to get them all the time. You know, they're always paranoid. I am seeing a lot of this right now with or symptoms, possible symptoms of this with the election coming up, and people, you know, just thinking that the world's going to end if Joe Biden is elected, or the world is going to end if President Trump is reelected. And yesterday, I get so frustrated with all the political mess on Facebook that I was determined yesterday to delete my Facebook. So I took the app off of my phone yesterday morning, but then last night, Casely had her last volleyball game, so I had to post pictures of her, so I re-downloaded the app. But I think what I'm going to do is just start deleting anyone that says anything political on Facebook. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. I am getting so tired of it. I don't know about you guys, but some people are looking kind of funny with their paranoia.
Can we point out that Joe Biden actually has Alzheimer's? So who the heck is gonna?
Well, we're not going to get into any type of political situation here. I mean,
I'm getting tired of it, though.
Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, that's totally up to you. I'm getting tired of both sides. I think they're both.
I know. It's like there's no good option. And I'm pretty sure everyone's the same. If there's a middle party that suddenly popped up, everyone would jump at him or her.
So the cluster B type of personality disorders are characterized by dramatic or erratic behavior. One of the most popular cluster B personality disorders is antisocial personality disorder. So antisocial people, these are not people that just avoid social circumstances. That would be a social phobia. Antisocial personality disorder is characterized by individuals who are very egocentric. They only care about themselves. They will do harm to anyone else. These are your true psychopaths or sociopaths. A lot of serial killers actually are going to exhibit symptoms of antisocial personality disorder. Your cluster C disorders are things like avoidant or dependent personality disorder, your obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Here's where we would consider those individuals who are very overly organized and very anal about things, very irritable all of the time. A dependent personality disorder is an individual who is, you know, all dependent on other people for just about everything. You know, they can't make their own decisions and things like that. So those would definitely be different types of personality disorders. So the last thing that I want to mention here, I want to go back and I want to mention eating disorders, because these are characterized, or these are categorized in the DSM-5. Let me see if I can find them. Well, I'll just talk about them. So anorexia is an eating disorder where an individual will just simply not eat. Bulimia is the eating disorder where people eat, but they cause themselves to throw up. So these are both eating disorders that are experienced. It is a common, we often think that females experience eating disorders, but remember, males can experience eating disorders as well. So these can have different causes. They can be caused by anxiety. So that's just how a person deals with their anxiety. They can also be caused by body image issues. And remember, though, when we're looking at any disorder, whether it's an eating disorder, a mood disorder, schizophrenia, remember it's very important that we take into account the society and the culture in which the person is in, because
So is it like me, whenever I get super anxious, the only way, like a really fast way for me to get over it, is to eat ice cream or just stress eat. It's not like, it's like my body was on autopilot. I just go downstairs, grab something, and then eat it, and then do it again and again and again until I feel better.
I don't think stress eating is not necessarily bulimia or anorexia. I think a lot of people will stress eat. I know the pandemic has caused people to gain a lot of weight because we're home, especially if you don't engage in substance abuse, you may eat. So eating can be an addiction. So that's also something to consider when we're looking at eating disorders. So eating can become just as much of an addiction as substance abuse or substance related disorders. So there are many types of disorders, but I think the most important thing to remember about all of the disorders are the 4 ways in which we define abnormality. Psychopathology we think of it as the study of psychological disorders, but remember, psychopathology is the study of abnormal behavior. But then we have to break that down and we have to consider what is normal, what is abnormal. And we do that by looking at the statistical rarity of the situation. We look at subjective discomfort. We look at the maladaptive behavior approach, but we also have to consider the sociocultural approach, looking at the societal norms and if the behavior actually is going to deviate from those societal norms. So those are the different ways in which we define abnormality. On Thursday, we are going to be looking at chapter 15. We touched on it a little bit today, the different therapies. We'll be looking at the biomedical model, the different like biological and physiological treatments we can use to treat disorders, as well as psychotherapy, which is what I went to school to be, and what I'm about to go back to school to touch up on. So I start school in January, so y'all pray for me. I'll be on y'all's end as well. So if y'all need anything, don't hesitate to email me. Anybody have any questions, comments, observations? Type them in the chat bar, or you can ask out loud. I will,
I do wonder about. You go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was wondering, so if someone so if he does it, okay, I can't figure out how to word it. Never mind.
Okay, Phoebe, if you think of it, just email me. If you need anything, just email me and I'll get back to you, but we will meet again Thursday morning at 8. And you'll have a great day.
This Thursday?
This Thursday at 8 in the morning.
Okay, I was just confirming. 'Cause I didn't know if it was next Thursday because some of my classes have been doing that and I cannot keep up.
Yes, we will meet on Zoom Thursday at 8 o'clock.
All right, thank you.